Already reviewed this?
No,
Seen it.
Jackie will go over it. We're not gonna go through it. She's just provided this for our. All right, we're gonna call this meeting to order, the Oroville Parks Commission, March 8th, 2022, 5:15. Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Castro,
Here.
Commissioner Krantz,
Here.
Commissioner Jones,
Here.
Commissioner Rich, Commissioner O'Reilly.
Here. Can I get someone to lead the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Anyone who wishes? Chair people?
Stand. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we have about 15 minutes to get through the first agenda item. Or actually, number 2, St. Park perimeter fence options. I just want to remind the commission and the public that the council has already approved putting a fence in St. Park around the lot home. That is not the decision of the Park Commission. However, if we as the Park Commission would like to be a part of that process and lend our recommendation on what we feel as the Park Commission we would like to see there, this is that time for that. So basically, we could choose a fence we like here tonight, and everything is as we want it to be, and forward it to council, and they can either decide that they would like to follow our recommendation, or they can choose to do something separate from our recommendation. So I just wanted to throw that out there as this isn't our decision to make, but if we want to be a part of that process, then this is that opportunity. Is there any staff on this issue?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. Dawn Nevers, Assistant Director of Community Development. Again, I will reiterate what Chairperson O'Reilly has stated, that this was a approval from the City Council, and really the reason for this request or this action was due to the uptick in vandalism, graffiti, a multitude of issues at St. Park. And again, the real reason for this was to protect this historic home that was deeded to the city. So it is our job to protect this home. And it's not just an uptick in vandalism and graffiti and issues at this location, it's citywide. But because this is a historic home that has so much history with Oroville, it is our job. We are the stewards of this home and we need to protect it. And as much as the last couple of weeks, I have received several texts, phone calls, emails regarding increased issues with broken windows, fighting, broken glass throughout the park. There has been issues with broken lighting, graffiti all over the concrete. There have been issues with, we had an arson fire on the porch at one point about 2 months ago. So because this is a city park and not just a historic home or a museum, we would like to erect a 6-foot fence around this park to have a hard closure of that park, as it is stated in our park rules, for dusk to dawn. So, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Because you stated 6-foot fence, and I know there was something passed recently after discussions with Commissioner Castro and some others about height of fences, a new ordinance or something that was passed within the city. Mm-hmm. Does this take into account of that?
Yes. As a public park, it can have up to a 7-foot fence. What we're requesting is a 6-foot fence because it's considered public quasi. So for the zoning.
It's my understanding the Planning Commission approved a 42-inch in front of homes, 30 inches on corners, and 7 feet in the back and along house lines in the historic district.
Right.
That's not 7 feet around the total perimeter.
That's for properties zoned residential. This is zoned public quasi because it is a park.
And it's already zoned as such
Correct.
for a 7-foot fence.
Yes. So I did put together a little PowerPoint presentation of options that we were considering for this fence. And so what we're looking at is, because the home is white, it stands out. It's this beautiful white giant sitting in the middle of this park. We're looking at something like a black wrought iron fence with decorative finials, arched gates, and then, bear with me, arches over the man gates to add a little decoration around the exterior of the fence to fit with the theme of the home, but to have the black so that the white home still pops in the background. The white won't take away from that home. So I found a few pictures of homes with 5 and 6 foot fences in their front yards. And these are just a few examples. One other fence that we have, and we don't have, Cal Water has in the downtown, is the fence off of Montgomery Street near Feather River. I'm drawing a blank on the, thank you. And this is a 6 foot fence protecting this structure. This one is a little older. It doesn't have all the filigree and decoration that the one that we're looking at has. However, oops, we're not going backwards.
Can you show us, Dawn, the one that you're looking at?
It's a combination of all of these. Not that one, not that one, not that one. More along the lines of this.
So is now the time for us to put in our input?
Absolutely.
So for me personally,
So, Mr. Chairperson, I do have public comment also if you want to let them go before you guys start
okay.
your debate. Our first speaker is Julie Miller.
Good evening, Parks Commission. I would just like to speak a little bit about a resident of the historic district. I grew up in Chico. I enjoyed visiting Stansbury House and Bidwell Mansion when I was a little girl. I think it is important that the town realizes that those houses are historic homes in Chico in the downtown neighborhood. They don't have 6 foot fences around them. This is, I understand, this is a design meeting. You guys get to put your input in. I feel as though this has kind of been shoved through the city as a knee-jerk reaction to the fact that we have had vandalism. That's true. However, the way the lot home is secured right now is the fact that it's not secured at all. It is wide open to anyone who wants to mosey on in at any hour of the day. And I think that the city could do a lot more to secure it with lights, video cameras, a resident on site who could call the police when they see suspicious activity. I don't think it's fair that now the town has to deal with a 6 foot fence that looks like a prison, basically. It's not welcoming to our visitors and actually to the residents who want to use the park. It looks terrible. It's not historically accurate at all. And I really feel as though we should revisit this. I think that the community should have input. I think the Arts Commission should have input. I think that the Historic Advisory Committee should have input. I think that this is a huge decision. And also, code enforcement and law enforcement should be consulted as to how we can secure our park better before we go ahead and just wrap it with a giant fence, because that's all we can do. I don't see how that's a good solution at all. It's a big investment, and I think that we really need to carefully weigh this decision as a community of people who all live here and who all have to drive by it and look at it. And also the citizens who are the visitors of Oroville. What are they thinking when they come to Oroville? Oh, Oroville's dangerous. They have to have 6-foot fences. Oroville is a small town. We are not the inner city of LA here. We have got to do better for our town. That is how I feel about it. And I really hope that the city will hear our pleas to please do not wrap our park, our beautiful historic homes, in 6-foot fences. I'm against it completely. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Daniel Ballard.
Good evening, Parks Commission. So I'm Daniel Ballard. I volunteer at the Eamon home. So we have, we witness some of the same things that the Lot home witnesses. But as you guys said, the decision was already made. I do wish, I can agree with Julie, that we would have focused on lighting and other factors and then hit it with a fence. But as far as the design of the fence, I think we're looking a little too hard for it. There's a illustration of the Lot home made back in its heyday, and it has a wrought iron fence around it, of course, half the size of 6 foot. But you could use that influence of what the exact fence that used to be around it was, and we have some talented metalworks here, the Pierces. I'm sure they care for our downtown a lot, and they would probably even put in and at least donate some time, if not material, towards this endeavor. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Daniel, do you have a copy of that picture?
I do. I have a framed one in my room. And I could provide it to you guys. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could send it to Kay Castro. I have her number, and I'll take a picture of it, and I'll send it to her so she can distribute it to you guys.
Daniel, can I have you send that to me as well, please?
Yeah. After the meeting, I'll get your contact info.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brian Williams.
Well, thank you for taking a moment to listen to my ideas about the fence around St. Park. I understand that many people feel that they need to have a fence of this size, and it unfortunately feels like it's going to happen at some point. I'm very against something that has footholds in the middle of the fence where anybody can find a way to climb over it. Because if you're putting a 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot fence, it has to be unclimbable because they still get in. And if they're inside that fence, it's easier for them to hide. And anybody that needs to go secure the property again has to go through very specific entrance points. And then they just jump back out on the other side. And so I think that's really a big decision. I remember seeing pictures in one of the threads I think Bobby was sending out, had some arch tops. Obviously the finials do help for security purposes. They're obviously not as aesthetically pleasing, but some of those did not have center rails, which would make them have to be a little more agile and athletic to try to find a way over the fence. Something like the picture that's being shown, no offense, Don.
It won't have a center rail.
Yeah, because that right there tells me I'm going to climb right over that with no issue, because it turns that 6 foot fence into a 3 foot fence, and so you might as well have a 3 foot fence with very sharp finials.
It was more focused on the decoration on top.
Yeah. Again, I would prefer to see a white, because black, it kind of takes, I don't know, it has a... Well, it just kind of has a stereotypical appearance that many people may not want. And yes, the Watt House is white, but if it was white as well, it would blend into the scenery and be able to see the green and the shrubs, and it's a little easier to see through when it's dark at nighttime. And so black on black is easy to camouflage yourself. And like I said, I'd really like to see something white, or I don't know. It seems a little obtrusive on the main street into downtown, and like some of you guys were saying, it seems a little uninviting. And so I'd like to see a little something that would be inviting and accessible, but also, if it's really about security, something to make sure that people aren't climbing it, and making our law enforcement agencies be able to enforce what's maybe going on inside of it when it's not supposed to be going on. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brian.
Our next speaker is Stephanie Holstein.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie. It's nice to be here and to get to discuss this with you. I understand the challenge that lies ahead for protecting certain properties. We have a property downtown, and every day we're doing our best to try to protect our own home. At this point, we have actual chains around all of our gates because people are high and stumbling into our yard, breaking our fence, just trying to climb in. So I understand this challenge of how do you protect spaces that you cherish. And I know this is a great challenge for the city. I know the city is overwhelmed with many great challenges right now. And I really appreciate the ideas that Daniel brought forward. I love the research so far because it's showing that it's trying to achieve an aesthetic. It's trying to reach a certain era and kind of try to make a complement to that. I like the idea that Daniel brought up about we have so many great artisans and people that maybe could come together and continue to workshop perhaps to come up with a solution that may be exactly what the Lot House could take in as part of its space and also still be a deterrent for people. Again, it's a great challenge. I appreciate it very, very much. I know with art you have black and you have white, and maybe those are questions that in the end that kind of just answers itself once more people maybe and the caring folks of this community and the skills and the trades that they have that they could bring and show their pride for this town can offer as well. So perhaps there is an opportunity, as Dawn is doing further research, that other folks could come forward and really put their heads together for us. So I appreciate the effort very much. And I know that there is a solution because I know there's got to be a solution for our house at some point. So I look forward to further discussion with this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairperson, we have one more speaker, Dorinda Schofield.
I'm resident of Oroville and stuff, so to me, going back and trying to do the history, I think that's amazing that he has a picture of it and stuff. I like the idea of white because that's what we're all used to, and especially if it was white in the beginning, that would be awesome. I think that would be great. So that's all I wanted to say is, you know, if we can go back to the original or sometime in that era and white, because that's what we're accustomed to. If you put black in, we're all going to go, wow, look at that. I mean, it's just going to be a huge surprise, and I think it'd just be a softer on the community if it remained white with what we're used to, and hopefully what it used to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Reilly, if I could respond to some of the requests from the
Absolutely.
speakers. So white is something that we could absolutely do. We would be putting out an RFP, and we would have a preference for local contractors or fencing contractors to submit proposals for this RFP. And we would send them directly to our metalworking facilities or metalworking operators in town. We would make it a no-climb fence, so that previous picture was just an example of the top portion that we would be considering. But I do like Daniel Ballard's idea of having it be true to the history of what the fence used to be. So once we receive that picture, we will use that as an example, and then try to enhance it in any way possible to make it a no-climb fence. Also, we are currently working on enhancing the lighting around Sank Park. Our city engineer, or excuse me, electrician has been doing his best to address current electrical needs, and we are looking at doing a lighting study or lumen study to see how we can further enhance the lighting for safety around the lot home in Sank Park. The other thing we're working on is cameras and an updated alarm system. So Wade has met with AccuLarm to install cameras around the perimeter of the lot home to capture any vandals that may be present. The other thing is with code enforcement, I have consulted our code enforcement director, and he was very encouraging of having the 6-foot fence because he has seen it work in other locations. One such location specifically is the AAA building down on Feather River Boulevard. Once they installed the 6-foot fence around that property, they haven't had any issues with vandalism, break-ins, or windows being broken. So it has proven a solid deterrent for vandalism. And back to what I was saying before, this is an asset the city owns and maintains. This is something that should a vandal come in and burn down the building, I would feel overwhelmingly guilty for not having done our due diligence and see that asset gone. When the fire was set at the Municipal Auditorium and now the Oroville Convention Center, that could have taken the whole building. Thank goodness we had our fire department there in time. But this is the reality that we're facing right now with our environment, and not just Oroville, but all out throughout California. We have an issue with transients, and they are destroying these assets of ours. And so that was really the intent behind the fence.
Thank you, Dawn. So,
Can I just ask a question?
yes.
So is there any way that some of those, if you could do like some cement?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like, I love the idea.
Jackie, can you turn her mic on, please?
Use like some cement pillars and stuff for that to attach to. You could also add more lighting that way around there too, where you're illuminating it, and it still fits in that area. I think that would be a great addition. To
Columns.
that. Columns, yeah. That's
Absolutely, and
perimeter.
that's something that could be considered.
And you could add all the lighting that way too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I have a couple of things real quick. First thing I want to mention is that it's not just California. This is a United States problem. And because of certain things that have happened within our federal government, our state government, our local government, things are just changing. And I don't think there's any one person in this room that wants to see this big old godly fence around this property, the park, the house. I mean, we just don't. My perspective personally is, if it's mine, stay the heck out of it, right? I should be able to go to the store, leave my truck unlocked, go in the store, get my things, and somebody should leave my stuff alone. I shouldn't have to worry about coming out to my purse gone. I don't have a purse, but that's one of the common things that are stolen out of cars. My wallet gone, my whatever gone out of my car, right? Unfortunately, with new laws and things that have passed, I'm preaching to the choir here, I know, but I just want to make it clear that these types of options are not something that we get to choose anymore. It's just a hard reality that this is what we have to do. And we have to do it to secure the things that we care about. Security systems on cars, we shouldn't have to have them, right? We shouldn't have to have a big horn beeper that goes off when somebody's touching our car. We have to have them. So I just want to be clear in the fact that I would much prefer people just stay out when they're supposed to stay out. Unfortunately, that's not the reality we live in. And so if we're going to have it, and I have talked to our law enforcement over a year ago, and our code enforcement, and again recently, about this problem at the lot home. And it's been an ongoing problem at the lot home. And if this were a residence we were talking about, and somebody was on your property, the cops could come and make them leave with the force necessary to do so. If they don't leave, they can go to jail, whatever. The problem with this is a park. It's a city-owned facility, and we can't just force them out of it. We can make them feel, we can't. We can make them feel uncomfortable about being there, which we have been doing. Neighbors have been calling us, and we will go out there and we will make them feel uncomfortable about being there. But we can't force them off the property without certain safeguards in place. We don't have locking gates right now. Law enforcement cannot enforce trespassing them without locking gates. So there's many things to go into effect as far as the aesthetics. We said at the beginning of this process, and those of us that were on the commission, that we will not move anything forward that does not is not era specific in looks and was not aesthetically appeasing. And so I wish that Daniel would have had that picture with him, because I want to see that before I make a comment here. But and then Brian, you hit the nail on the head. What I was going to say before public comment was, I don't want anything people can climb on. If they climb on it, it just defeats the purpose. So that's where I'm at with it. Commissioner Castro, you're in the queue.
I am, and I do apologize, Chair, for my reaction, but I very much disagree with you. I believe that we do have the ordinance in place, and then if we did lock those gates, and if the back residence, that is a problem. That gate for driving into that park is open 24/7. It's never closed. I've gone over there. My dad lives across the street. I've closed those gates. I've tried to lock them. They're not closed or locked. So although I agree that we can enforce it, I disagree that we are not doing everything that we can to enforce it. I think you are still going to have to close and lock a 3-foot gate or a 4-foot gate or a 6-foot gate. And you're going to still have to patrol inside, because they will climb over. And then they have safe sanctuary in there, because that gate's locked and nobody's going to check it for the rest of the day, night. We still need to patrol it. We still need to watch it. I think we have not investigated motion cameras, although a few of the neighbors are very, very happy about those searchlights. Some of them are not happy about the searchlights that are now in their bedroom windows. I think a motion detector light, possibly. I was caught personally over on Myers Street in front of a store for loitering, waiting for the flags. An alarm went off because I stood there too long. How about loitering devices to make it uncomfortable, and the patrols? So in my view, if it's aesthetically pleasing in the era, doesn't have to be 6 or 7, 8 feet tall. It needs to have the components we've talked about. Be able to lock it, be able to enforce it, be able to make sure that who's supposed to be there after dusk is no one, except for the people having the party who live there in the back. I also am concerned, as you get off Highway 70 on Montgomery Street, you've got several markets with wrought iron black fenced windows. Then the new veterans home that's going to be built, the Planning Commission has already voted on the 6-foot fence to go around the veterans home. Continue on to our lovely museum with another black wrought iron fence. For me, that's not all aesthetically pleasing. So I still don't understand why we're not looking at something that was already produced or recommended 100 years ago, or a reasonable height to still achieve the goals we want. And I believe that voting and recommending one of these without that research, and I have lots of emails here from people that say, isn't the Historical Advisory Committee and the Planning Commission taking care of this? What does the Historical Advisory Committee say? So I'd also like to know what the Historic Advisory Committee has to say.
Are you looking to me for an answer? Okay. I thought it was a general question. I apologize.
It could be rhetorical, but where are they in that process?
Dawn, do you know if they've been involved in this process?
They have been in discussions of this process, but they already know that the council has approved moving forward with the fence. They also have expressed interest in bringing it back, so that's something we can take it back to them for a bite at the apple on design of the fence.
Has there been anything set permanently in that says this has to be a 6-foot fence? Or is that just
That was what the
we're
council had
looking at?
approved.
Council has approved a 6-foot fence.
So, again, I have heard what the public and what the commission has requested. We are looking for something similar, if not identical, to the former fence that was in front of the lot home. A white fence, potentially columns, if that would be correct or cost effective. We are already looking at locking mechanisms, dawn to dusk to dawn locking mechanisms. The gate would potentially be an automatic gate opener for the resident so that it would close easily for them. There would be no excuse to not close the gate. Again, we're already addressing cameras, lighting. Code enforcement clears out the campers every morning. Parks department also clears out the campers every morning, and every time there's an incident, public safety gets there when they can. But I hear all of your comments. I will take them into consideration, and we can take those comments to the next planning commission meeting and have the Historic Advisory Commission review what the Park Commission's recommendation is.
When does this come back to council?
It will come back to council. First meeting in April. Excuse me.
May I follow up and ask the question? Was the council aware of all of the different committees and neighborhood input when they made that decision?
Well, this was an initial request for funding. So it wasn't a final decision for a fence specifically. It was an initial request for funding. This funding is, Prop 68 per capita funding. It's an allocation from the state. We had to put.
So
the council did not.
Prop 68 only says it can be a 6-foot fence?
No.
The council did not say, hey, let's put a 6-foot fence around this and this is what we're moving forward. What they did was the staff put in a recommendation of, hey, can we go after this funding for a 6-foot fence around this property? And that's what the council approved.
Mm-hmm.
So staff said, can we put a 6-foot fence? We didn't say, council, can we put a fence and then talk about the design and height?
It was the initial request, knowing that further discussion was needed before an RFP was submitted.
So because time is of the nature tonight, I'm going to get through the other commissioners here really quick, but I will say that I would like to see this come back at our next Parks Commission meeting. Do we have that before this comes back to council? We do not?
We can bring it back to the next Park Commission meeting once the Historic Advisory Committee has provided input. And then we can get a final recommendation to council. However, we need to get this RFP. It's not going to work with council, no.
No, because council meets on the 5th and their next meeting's the 12th. Yeah.
So it would have to go to the 19th.
Here's what I see as the problems is, number one, we all want to see the fence that Mr. Daniel has a picture of.
Right, and that's what we would put forth.
And number two, I think the biggest thing is the size of the fence. Number two is the color of the problems, the discussion being had.
I'm hearing a consensus for white. So if we want to go with white, it's just a matter of requesting white. And
so the other biggest issue would be the size of the fence. And that's Commissioner Castro, that's your only downfall to this is the size of the fence, correct?
Oh,
okay. Commissioner Krantz. I'm sorry.
So, in a related conversation, the thing that I keep going back to is the missed opportunity of having an on-site tenant who does not serve in some capacity as a security guard. Someone who I believe was described as sleeps all day because they have a graveyard shift job.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't the requirement.
I don't mean to sound like sarcastic, but where did that idea come from?
That idea came from a previous administration. So
Okay.
we have a cottage at the Chinese temple and a cottage at the lot home.
Right.
And so they just wanted somebody there. The idea was if we had somebody there living there as it was a residence, then it would reduce the amount of vandalism and vagrancy and, damage. That hasn't been the case at the lot home. And so we can't just kick this person out because they don't have the job that we want them to have. We'd have to pay relocation fees, everything. So until they choose to move out, we have a tenant.
Okay.
Commissioner Jones?
My biggest concern is the finials on this fence, no matter what type of fence you have. The ones that most of them I've seen look penal. They look martial. They don't have a pleasing artistic appeal. In the past, I've seen several instances where they put acorns as a finial. It's very beautiful, and it's appropriate for the oak trees in our state. So you have something that doesn't look quite so put off. It doesn't look like a spear, So that's my biggest concern. I said, wow. So, that's what I want to see is something that's not only effective, but it's also aesthetically pleasing.
Right. And I think it'll also determine what the previous fencing was that Mr. Ballard is bringing back as to what that finial would look like if there is a finial. But yes, I do see your point.
Right.
Absolutely.
We also look at other historic properties in the state that have had cast iron fencing.
Absolutely.
To see something that's period correct. And
Yes.
that's where I've seen the acorns before.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm done.
I want to see something sharp up there so that it deters them from going over the darn thing, personally. That was one of my biggest things is whatever deters them, and that's the whole reason for this fence, deterrent.
We just want to maim them, not impale them.
Correct. Barbed wire around the top. All right, so if there are, Commissioner Rich.
Okay. Thank you. Since the park is not locked, do we have any data that would show us the effectiveness of a shorter fence? Because I don't know that the fence height is relative or not. I have a neighbor who lives downtown, and she says that, and she has a fence in front of her yard. It's not tall, but she says it does the job. It's just the fact that you have to go over something. But I would just maybe like to see some examples from other cities that have shorter fences and to see if it's a deterrent at all, because right now it doesn't lock, right? There's nothing that locks. So
Right.
perhaps just something that is locked would be sufficient without the height.
Okay.
So because this is a park and not a residence, here's the problem we're running into, and I know this because I've spoke to the police chief about it multiple times. One of the reasons that I'm aware of that this height is the height being thrown out there is because if you put a 2 or 3 foot fence there, regardless if you lock it or not, per the standards of the federal courts, Supreme Courts, the folks running the legal systems and protections for transient population individuals who are helping these individuals get away with these crimes, is that there has been a lot said that it has to be completely secured. So again, going with what Commissioner Castro said, if it locks, it should be enforceable. Absolutely. Should. But because of all these laws and transitions, a 3 foot fence, basically they are, from my understanding, they are not saying that, okay, that absolutely sets the precedence that is secured, that's a property you can't enter. And that's my understanding on it. That's the reason why they're requesting a taller fence.
Is it that, does staff know, is 6 feet the height to meet that criteria for enforcement?
I don't believe so.
I'm not 100% on that.
I
I'll have to
don't
get
think
that
there's a
answer.
number set that does that, but I think that's why.
Understood.
I think that when I spoke to to Chief Legrone at that time, that's what he was seeing due to the data he had as to how people were not getting prosecuted for trespassing on properties of this nature.
Understood. Thanks.
If there's no other commissioners with comments, we're going to move on to the next item?
So I will take these recommendations. We will also take this to the Historic Advisory Commission, and then we will take both recommendations to City Council for the final decision before we fly an RFP.
And this is going to come back, how is this going to come back to us?
Well, again,
Can we table this until they get back with the picture? Because if the picture is what we're all saying, it might be the thing that goes, oh, we all love this, and we can make a recommendation tonight.
I think that would be fine.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's go ahead and table this until the picture comes back.
Okay.
Does everybody agree? Okay. Reports, discussions, correspondence. Item number 3.
All right.
Sorry it took so long, Jackie.
Just because I'm in the corner, so you're not having to stare at me all the time over there, I wanted to come over here. So what we are going to do tonight is 2 different things. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes or so going over some policies and procedures that relate to the Parks Commission, since we have new commissioners and some of our veteran commissioners didn't actually get this information back when they started. We thought it might be helpful to provide you guys with some information, and then we'll go into the workshop part of the goal setting. So what you have in front of you are a few things underneath your Parks Commission workshop schedule. The first thing that you have is the Rosenberg's Rules of Order at a Glance. This is provided to you to kind of, Rosenberg's Rules is the format that the council has adopted to run our meetings. And so what is listed there is kind of just some basic motions and how they work in order to help you be able to make motions and take actions at the meeting. And so that's just for your reference. On the back of it is what we provided the public a few years ago, which is actually up on our wall over there, but just public meeting etiquette and what we expect of the public and the board and everyone that's in the meeting. The next thing that you have in front of you is a summary of the Brown Act. The importance of this is that we are governed by the Brown Act as the Parks Commission. And the big takeaway from this is that a meeting is any congregation of a majority of legislative body that meets at the same time to discuss with anything that's within the body's subject matter jurisdiction. And that could be all 3 of you, would be a majority sitting in the same room having a discussion. It could be Commissioner A talks to Commissioner B, who talks to Commissioner C, so that becomes a serial meeting, which is also falls under the Brown Act. It also, in this paper, it talks about when our agendas have to be posted and just information about what it is that we do as a body under the Brown Act. So that's what you have there in front of you. And then the third thing that staff has provided you tonight is a staff report and parks policies and procedures that was adopted by the council on February 7th, 2012. I gave you the staff report and the procedures so you can kind of have it as information. In the procedures, the policies and procedures, what you'll notice, the first part, there's a table of content, and then behind it, it says policies for consideration and approval by the council. So the first half of the packet are policies that were approved by the council that are related to the parks and museums. The second half of the packet, there is an additional page that looks like this, and it says policies approved by the Parks Commission, and it was for informational purposes for the council, because when the council was adopting the policies, they were adopting the first half, because the second half are ones that you guys have preview over. So it was for informational purposes. I'm sure you'll have questions about some of that as time goes on, but we wanted you to have it as new commissioners and as commissioners that had been here for a while that hadn't maybe received this. And so feel free when you have time to read through the light reading material, and you'll have that.
Thank you, Jackie.
So I apologize for not getting it to you guys sooner. Some of it was having to research on our own and look for it, and other things was just trying to start establishing procedures so in the future we have this for you guys.
How does this relate specifically to what Mr. Huber presented to us for policies? Because there's a lot of museum stuff in here, and we were told we're not museums.
So what Mr. Huber specifically came to speak to you guys about was our charter. And so when he was reviewing the charge of the commission, he was going over the charter and what applies to this commission from our charter. This is in addition to that and separate from that because these are policies that were adopted by the council or by the commission, depending on which item it is. And so policies are in addition to the charter.
And which has precedence?
The charter trumps everything. And then under the charter is our municipal code. And our municipal code then comes under that, and then the policies. If the policies are adopted by the council, though, they're in addition to. And so a charter could say, here's your broad responsibilities. And then the council has the ability to create municipal codes or policies to then add to those additional responsibilities.
So just basically, if we were to get in front of council and say, we, the Park Commission, would like you to place all of the museums under Park Commission purview, right? Just that simple. If they approved that, it would go into this. It would not go into the charter. It would go into this. So these are all the approvals by the council since the charter's making. Or since the last review of the charter.
It's Department of Parks and Trees. So as you read through it, some of them you'll see that the council has given the charge to the Parks Commission to partake in those, and then other ones you'll see that maybe the director of Parks and Trees or someone else is the decision-making body for that policy. And so
differentiation is Parks Commission or
Parks Department.
It's Park Commission or Parks Department.
Yeah. But
okay,
because you guys had a lot of questions about the museums and the parks and different things, I wanted you guys to be able to have this to read through to have a better understanding.
Thank you.
And I know that as you read through it, I think it'll help clarify some things and questions that you guys have had over the past couple months.
So for clarification, anything that's written in here is true and correct.
Currently adopted policy.
Right. And to add to what Jackie is saying, over the years, many years, the purview of the Park Commission has expanded and contracted unofficially. So there has been previous oversight over the museums, but it was never officially granted to the Park Commission. Out of this goals workshop this evening, if it is the request of the Park Commission to expand your purview to oversee the museums, we would take that as a request to City Council and ask that City Council approve that oversight over the museums as a resolution so that it could be formally adopted.
Okay.
And as you'll see in here, some policies the council has already kind of worked out. So, I mean, because if like policy 28 for collecting the items for the museums, I mean, as you guys know, when an item comes in for possible placement in a museum, you guys review it, decide if you think it would be culturally appropriate and period appropriate for the museum, and you make a recommendation to council.
Hold on, I'm going to correct that.
Okay.
The docents will review the item, make sure it's culturally or historically appropriate for the museums, and they forward that recommendation for acceptance to the Park Commission.
Yes.
That's the way it's written. That's okay.
But so, I mean, so in here you'll see you already are intertwined in the museums, but to make it clean and simple, the goal workshop will definitely help with that.
Very good.
And the docents report to Wade.
The docents report to me.
You.
Currently.
Not Park Department.
I'm the Parks Director.
You're the I'll go home and study my org chart.
Well, and that also happened back in 2012 following the recession, because there was the contraction of the city due to the recession and due to the dissolution of the redevelopment agency, or the RDA. And so the Parks Department, Public Works, and building planning all fell under the umbrella of community development.
All right. Are we ready for
We're ready to
our
set
workshop?
goals. We don't know what we're
Okay.
setting them for.
All right.
Or museums or parks or what, but let's set goals.
Well, so that's where this whole part is going to come into play.
Becky, can I interrupt you for just a moment? They're
Sure.
back with the picture. If we can just get that out of the way real quick.
Sure.
So, also what I was thinking about, hold it up so you don't, it's kind of big. You know, the main thing is the columns, and then, that can be changed to concrete. And I heard that the idea of wiring, you know, putting lighting in there, you could replace the balls on top of these columns with light fixtures. But another thing I wanted to bring up was that if you're taking out the current fence at the lot home, the Eman home needs a back fence. And, you know, it would be nice to recycle, you know, some of those old columns, to have a bit of a foot traffic highway.
Okay.
Going back through
Yes.
there.
Mhm.
And Alberta Tracy lives back behind there, so
Okay.
it's pretty dangerous for her.
Okay.
And it's just like Kay said, you know, I'd like to help people move along, but it's a lot nicer when I got a fence to tell them to stay out of.
Yes.
So was that fence actually in place at the lot home at some point?
Yeah, at some point. The one
It was
that's
before the
currently-
wooden fence?
Yeah, the wooden fence was probably Judge Lott's daughter.
Yeah.
who put that
Because the
there.
picture I
That
think
was
you sent it,
Cornelia.
okay.
And that was Cornelia.
And that was
Well-
with the chicken coop wire.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the one there.
And that's only along the front
Right.
Montgomery Street side. The remainder of the perimeter fence is chain link.
Oh, speaking of which, were we not supposed to also make a recommendation for Rotary Park?
Yes. Yes, we were. So the recommendation for Rotary Park was not a fully enclosed lockable fence. It was just fencing along the perimeters with walk past paths, a 42-inch fence to prevent vehicles from driving into Rotary Park and doing burnouts. So it would just provide a safer perimeter for the park patrons.
And that was chain link?
That would be chain link, black, green, whatever you choose, but we would also re-chain link the back stops around the baseball fields so that everything was uniform and consistent.
And you could get out around those backstops to get a ball that goes out?
Yes, we would, like I said, we would leave openings to where you have a 4 to 6 foot opening and then a set back fence so you can walk in and around.
Commissioner Castro?
The other side? The other side where the picnic area is, there another entrance there?
Yeah, oh yes, we would leave all those entrances in place and we would make them
At Rotary, there's no entrances yet.
foot entrances, accessible passive travel, ped ramps, things like that.
Rotary Park doesn't have a fence right now.
Correct. That's
So
correct.
when you say current entrances, I'm confused.
There are foot entrances. Foot entrances like by the
with
picnic area.
concrete paths.
Yes.
Concrete path. I'm just thinking I can walk on there
Yeah.
anywhere I want.
And
Well, you can.
that's the purpose of the fence because we've
Okay.
had several vehicles,
And driving.
yes, and do burnouts in the lawn and damage things. And it ruins sprinklers. It does more damage than just lawn.
Daniel, while they're talking, can I see that picture one more time, please?
Yeah.
Sorry. I know I've seen some people
As
standing
far
there.
as Rotary Park, I've been
Looks
there
like
several
approximate 5
times.
foot,
And
4.
you could
4 or 5?
use bollards instead of a fence.
We've
done that.
considered that as well.
We've done that in
5 feet
Sunrise
better?
Recreation and Park District in the past, and it works very well, and it's not as expensive.
It just can't be climbable.
And it does the job, and park maintenance can have removable bollards so they can get in and out at their will.
If that's the desire of this commission, then we would absolutely
Throwing it
pursue
out as an
bollards.
idea.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed.
I'm hearing a consensus for bollards around the park as opposed to chain link.
Around Rotary Park.
I'd like to ask Wade's opinion. Your folks are the ones that deal with this all the time. I see the mess down there.
I'm actually pretty open to any idea. I'm still kind of trying to think of alternate solutions as well, because it seems pretty costly to put a fence around a perimeter as large as the Rotary Park for a couple vehicles. So I'm still thinking about that.
What would be, looking at the long run, the reason why we're even discussing it, looking at the long run and then cost effectiveness, what would be more cost effective, chain link or Bullards? I don't need specifics, but does anybody have a guess?
I don't know until we get a proposal. Because the cost of chain link, while all materials in general are going up. So it just, until we get a proposal back.
So would it be the will of this commission to say, as far as Rotary Park and the fencing around or the security of the perimeter, Bullards if it is cost effective? If not, then we approve chain link and where the staff is proposing, Commissioner Krantz?
I'd like to know if it would be appropriate to get feedback from members of the public who are here, because it seems like there might be some opinion that way.
I'm willing. Brian, can you come up to the mic, please?
Thank you again for your guys' time. As Donna and I have discussed in the past with our trying to figure out the levee behind our house, they want to put a gate up at Rotary Park towards the Bedrock Park, so you can still go up First Street towards Centennial Park. But what they found out is that there's many other places where cars have driven up the levee. And one of the suggestions that they had come up with was getting an excavator to bury big, large boulders that would be natural, and they're probably plentiful around. And so that could possibly be enough to, one, damage a car, give places for people to sit, and still leave enough accessible space.
I do it on my properties all the time.
Yeah, so I would think that would be the less obtrusive, most natural looking situation. I would understand that bollards, if we did do bollards, they would probably be more expensive up front, but there's going to be much less damage done to them in the future. So it could be like hopefully more of a once and done type thing than something where the Parks Department has to continually maintenance stuff, whether somebody's trying to scrap the metal or steal it for themselves. You're not really going to be taking bollards out very easy. And if you hit it with a car, it's really going to hurt your car. And you hit a chain link fence, it's not really going to hurt your car.
Right.
And so I'm all for boulders if we can find enough. I'm sure the city's got the equipment to be able to place them, and it could be done gradually if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Wade?
I was just going to say that, thinking of all the other parks, they're all fenced. It's probably, if I had to lean one way or the other, I would probably prefer fenced. Because it is surrounded by roads on four sides. So you got small children, soccer practice, basketball, things like that, balls going in the street. I've had to stop a couple times for kids to run out and grab those types of items. So a bollard probably won't. A bollard ain't going to stop a kid from running the street. I can't think of any kids that have been hit recently, but not to say it won't happen. And if we have grant funds, the fence may be, in my opinion, the way to go for safety issues.
So does this grant funding is this grant funding only able to be used for fencing?
No, that's what our submitted request was for, so we would have to amend the request.
To the grant supplier?
No, to the state.
Commissioner Castro.
Did it define? Was fence defined? With a bunch of boulders could be a fence.
Yes, it was defined in our application.
As a 6-foot wrought iron.
No. We're talking about Rotary.
But yes to that as well.
As a chain link fence.
Rotaries was identified as a chain link fence is what we requested in our state application. And for lot home was a 6-foot wrought iron fence that we were applying for funding for.
So I do have one request before, if possible, I know some of these things come up and the deadlines are before we have a meeting, but if possible, even if it's just to fly the idea, just to get a consensus or whatever, if these things can come before us to kind of, because these ideas would have been great before that was submitted so that we could say, you know, these are some ideas maybe that are out there. That way you guys aren't having to backtrack and go change a request.
Right. And again, this was just to seek approval for the funding. The details were going to come back.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's not, oh, hey, we need to change our request, and we're looking at now, you guys aren't going to give us the money because we need to change our request.
Right. The intent of the funding is safety in general.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So
the money is guaranteed at this point. We have been awarded Prop 68. If we need to change our application, that is doable.
Okay.
So it's not going to, you know, they're not going to take funding away by any means.
So let me do this. Let me go down the line of commissioners and see where we're at on the fencing for Rotary. Commissioner Jones, what type of fence would you like to see, or security would you like to see at Rotary?
I'm torn because it's possible that we could do a combination, you know, over the frontage road where the traffic goes down, and the two side streets, they're just, they're residential roads and nobody drives down them really. So it's really an issue where multiple different applications for the best outcome. I've walked that park several times, and both the side streets down there, there's little to no traffic, and the residents park along there, and it's only the frontage road in front where the cars pass all the time. Maybe that's the only place where we really need a fence, or maybe you will elect to do the whole thing. I want to look at all the options, you know, before making a decision. See what the cost is for the options.
Commissioner Castro?
I think Rotary Park has a little different security issue because of people driving around it and doing their donuts. And so that would change my opinion from say, the lot home fence. So whatever will keep people from driving around there, it hasn't really been an issue. The balls are flying out and kids are getting hurt, but that's a good thing to think about as well. I personally don't like the one-way in, two-way out, or two-way in, two-way out. If I'm, you know, doing something and something happens and I feel uncomfortable and I can't get out either of those doors, I don't really want that fence to stop me from being able to get out.
It wouldn't be a hard closure gate.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So as long as the driving, I think that's the biggest issue I'm hearing now.
Commissioner Krantz?
I think my opinion at this point is not so strong about Rotary Park as much as to make sure that if the fencing chosen for Rotary Park were the higher price, that it would not deduct from fencing for Sank Park.
Right.
That would be my main concern at this point until I have more information.
The funding will primarily go to Sank Park, and we would request additional funding if necessary to make up the difference for Rotary Park.
Commissioner Rich?
I would go with staff recommendation because I feel like Wade's got some considerations that he's still thinking about, and I like what he said about, you know, consistent with what they're doing at other parks.
Mm-hmm.
And I am along the same lines of whatever keeps the kids in our parks safe and whatever keeps those who are just looking to cause havoc out. So whether that be boulders, and I didn't even think of that idea until Brian brought it up, and that's, you can put some really decorative, I mean, you can get rocks off Table Mountain and set in there that look decorative, and they're just boulders. So boulders in some areas, like Commissioner Jones said, boulders in some areas and Ballards in others, and fencing, and whatever secures the park to the point we need it secured, I'm okay with. So I would like to get a consensus from the commission on Rotary Park that staff look at all the options with the funding and with the best solution they can find. Now, you can't bring this to us before it goes back to council for approval, right?
We can, it would just delay approval. So,
Can you,
but we can bring it back this next month if you wish. And then make a final decision with a recommendation to council. But we just need a solid recommendation to send to council so that the council has something to approve, and then we can get the RFP out, because that's still going to be a lengthy process in itself.
we meet again in March?
April.
We meet in April after the council meeting,
This is a special meeting.
right?
But Don was saying if you guys met on the 12th, then we would take it to council on the 19th instead of the 5th.
Gotcha. Okay, so you would just delay it there for 2 weeks. Okay, so if it is the consensus of this commission for Rotary Park, for staff to look at all the options that have been suggested by both commission and public and come up with a best case scenario, cost effective, and bring that back on that park, is that the consensus I'm hearing? Yes. So as far as Sank Park, I like the picture that he brought in. I like the columns. I like the ideas about maybe some lights around it. However, they need probably to be put in a place where they can't be knocked out from the walkway. Yeah. So with all of those things in consideration, speaking with Commissioner Castro while we were looking at it, that appears to look like a 4 or 5 foot fence. Commissioner Castro likes the 5 foot mark.
If that's the recommendation of the park commission, that's what we would send to council.
So with that picture, that design, and I love the design because there's no climbing that thing unless, I mean, obviously some people are very talented. Most of our transient population are either high or drunk and they're not going to climb it. So with that picture, would we be willing to move that forward with the, I believe the consensus is white, with looking at the possibility of columns that can't be climbed and some lighting options? 5 foot.
Okay.
Can I get a motion on that? And that can basically just be a motion, you can motion to approve it as I said it.
I move to recommend to council the similar picture that Daniel Ballard presented. How many feet did I want?
5.
5 feet, with the columns unclimbable. White.
Okay. And I heard with lighting. Was that something?
With lighting.
Possibility.
I don't know. I'm just saying what I heard.
So lighting on the finial of the post, the corner posts.
The columns, yeah.
That would be pretty.
If it's possible, that's not even a requirement for me, but. So that was your motion. Can I get a second?
I second the motion.
We have a first motion and a second.
Oops. Sorry.
That would be pretty.
The same part. Yeah. Motion carries with 5 yeses and 0 nos.
Very good.
Yay.
So this will go to the Historic Advisory Committee on March 24th, the Park Commission on April 12th, and the Council on April 19th. Following approval, it will go out for RFP, and it'll typically be a 30-day opening for an RFP. And then once we select a bidder, then it'll go back to council for approval of the cost.
And is there a way we can keep updated on that?
We'll continue to provide you updates. We'll keep it on the backlog report.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jackie, you're back up.
Thank you all for the healthy discussion this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to go through a brainstorm exercise. This has been done a few times for some of you, and some of you this will be brand new. But the whole goal at the end of this is to be able to take all of your ideas and goals and what you aspire to see in the parks, potentially museums too, and bring it together so that we have a common goal that you guys are, and with staff that we're working towards. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by utilizing, I'm going to go through the whole process and then we'll start it. But we're going to start by utilizing the notes or the sticky notes in front of you. And what you're going to do is anything that has ever been something that you've wanted to see for our parks, you're going to write it on one of them. And you're going to have exactly 10 minutes with the timer to do that. And then from there, you're going to have 5 minutes to get them all up on the whiteboards behind us. And then we're going to organize them into groups, and then we're going to identify the groups. And then the second part of it is if there's anything that we need to talk about to kind of tweak it a little bit. And then the last part will be then from selecting our groups, narrowing them down into your priorities of your however many groups we form, which one's your top priority that you want to see happen sooner than later, and then down to the one that isn't as top of a priority.
Jackie,
and then we'll end
we have
with
some commissioner questions.
Okay.
Commissioner Krantz.
Are you wanting this to include topics or strictly just what we would like to see in the parks in terms of structures, aesthetics?
It could be anything. So
Okay,
it
great.
could be you want to see more users in the parks. It could be that you want to see security lights or cameras. It could be that you want to see a new park somewhere in town. I mean, this is the sky's the limit. You guys are coming up with anything that you want right now is the time to write what you want to see on the note cards. We're then going to group them together.
Commissioner Castro.
Can we have people from our audience also participate with the sticky note?
So
I would answer that and say, not that I discourage any kind of public input, but because I've been a part of this process before, for this workshop, it would be beneficial for the goals of the commissioners, for what our personal goals for the park commission, to just have the commissioners do this part of the workshop.
What I will say,
I have pages and pages of people have been sending me today of goals and things they want. So I will write them down. So if you have any, text me while you're sitting there, because it's not me as a commissioner. It's me talking to the community. So.
Well, and definitely write down anything and everything you think of, and we'll go through this process. We also, this is also a public meeting, so if any of the commission or any of the public members would like their 3 minutes on the goal workshop part, they do have that ability. And so if you want to wait till towards the end of the process or in the middle of it before you finalize it, like, you have that option, because this is an open and public meeting.
So in order for them to have input on our what we write, though, they would have to have their comment before we do them.
So whenever you want to allow for 3 minutes for public members, that's up to you.
Okay.
And we can have that worked into the process. Once I do start the timer for a section that we're working on, though, there will only be that time for that. So we want to make sure we're kind of sticking to those guidelines because it's part of the process.
I would also like to say we've done this before and it's super fun, but I don't want to hear safety, cameras. I want to hear boulders at that place at the bottom of the levee and 5 cameras. Yeah, security, we know. How do we do security? How?
We get there.
Well, okay.
And I will say, because I know you've done this with a different commission, but the Parks Commission, I can state from personal experience that we've been really good at bringing back through our log and through staff what we've been doing to meet those goals that you guys come up with.
I'm going to just ask quickly.
Got it.
The consensus of the commission on when you would like to hear public input. Would you like to hear it before we start these? Would you like to hear it before we make our final decision at the end of this process? Commissioner Krantz?
My guess is that members of the public came tonight because they expected this to be a public brainstorming meeting as it was advertised. So I think it's only fair, and I would really like to hear what the public has to say.
Right, which we all agree on. When would you like to hear their input?
Oh.
Would you like to hear it before we write all of our things so they give us ideas to write?
Yeah.
Or would you like to hear it before we finalize the decision so they can say, oh, that's a good idea, I think you should put that over there?
I want to hear theirs first.
Okay. So let's go ahead and do that, Jackie, if that's okay.
So I don't have any blue speaker cards for this section, so if there are people that would like to speak.
Huh?
We did invite.
Are you the only one? Is there?
To the
They would
workshop?
be,
Or
yes,
just want to go up, maybe?
part of the workshop, that's why they came.
We just go up?
We decided.
You'll give me some time.
Because it wasn't.
You left early.
Oh. No, I'm okay with
Yeah,
it.
I know, but,
All right, Stephanie,
okay.
hello.
Hello again, everyone. Okay, that's great. You know, we just
Go ahead.
drove to Daniel's house. Daniel and I are bookends of the tennis court. So if you know where the tennis court area is, right there, Fourth, our little island, as we call it, our little darkened area at night, pitch black when those lights go out at the tennis court at night, all to Bedrock Park. All you hear is scuttering and shuffling and screaming at night. You see shadows moving behind our house constantly because we got a lighting issue. I've had different folks that I've met point out different areas where maybe there could be lighting. We had a great success with Wade, came and trimmed out a lot of it, so now we can kind of see back there a little bit more, but it's still at night. Once it hits it, it is dark and scary. I don't leave my house after about 11 o'clock. I don't go past my fence because it's out there. I've seen it on my security cameras, and it's not safe for me. So I am really hoping and proposing that all the great minds that be in the technology that we have to pursue lighting dawn to dusk, more like lighting in our parks. I've driven by, what is it, USA Town? Is that what it's called? Playtown? Right. Pitch black, and you see the shuffling and the shadows, and you see it all happening, the stirring and the menacing, and I feel for those neighbors as well. So again, dawn to dusk lighting. I understand they don't transient behavior in the evening. They have a real hatred towards strobe lights. They don't like it. So anything where perhaps if it's motion censored, that would trip a light, and the strobing, and they cannot tolerate whatever they're on. That is just something they do not want any part of that as well. So again, yeah, loitering deterrent type lighting, strobes, anything that turns on, lets everybody else know they're there. They don't want any part of that. The other issue that I was going to bring up, because I just went to Daniel's house, and he's right next to the bathroom at the tennis courts. And that was scary just 5 minutes ago, what was going on over there. Really scary. They're just right out there in his front yard, and what they're doing is, it's not okay, and they're menacing, and they stare at you like, we're not going to go, we can stay here, we can do this. So I'm concerned about these bathroom spaces in our area, and I don't know how to make them safer. I don't know what to do there, Wade, but we have people all night long that hang out in those spaces.
Are those restrooms locked currently? Yeah, and they're for the River Parks and Recs.
Sometimes I see the truck go and lock it. Sometimes I don't see the truck go and lock it. So it's inconsistent, unfortunately.
That's a conversation I can have with for the River Parks and Rec.
Okay, and that is the one space that is lit up, so I can see them when they're sleeping in there at night. Especially, if they're in that space. Sometimes they're behind the space where I'm sure Daniel sees it and I don't see it. But again, I can't leave my house because I see that through the tennis courts. I know.
Sorry.
Are there any other public comments?
So the two things, they look like they are doing something with the bathroom. I'm not sure yet. They took out the divider wall that covered the entrance to the bathrooms, and I believe that was due to a dog attack that happened the other day.
Where are you talking about?
The bathrooms at the tennis courts. Yeah, there was a...
Just so you're aware, the tennis courts are not our bathrooms.
Right,
okay.
Yeah. So I was just saying that it looks like they're doing something to work on that, and I think that was boosted after a man was attacked while in a stall by a couple's dog who were hanging out in the bathrooms. But anyways... my neighbors and I don't always see eye to eye on this topic, but as far as the levee right above the tennis courts, is that city jurisdiction, city parks?
Yes.
Okay. So I've presented a
Let me
map.
clarify, that is city jurisdiction, it is not city parks.
Okay.
It's jurisdiction. It's a continuation. It's gray.
Okay.
Do I have any way to look at my time?
A minute 45, sorry.
Oh, okay. So anyways, I've presented a map before to the Rotary Club showing what it would look like to have that actually built out and gone through as an actual road. It used to be an actual road where Feather River Boulevard continued on to the levee, and you can see that in the movie The Klansman. You know, they're driving down that way in the opening credits. And anyways, I don't see it as a road where you can pull off and park. You know, I see it kind of like in front of Centennial Park. You can drive by it, but you can't really pull off and park somewhere necessarily right in front of Centennial. I don't think there's a reason that people should have to pull over and park there, but you know, it's a good way to get accessibility over to Bedrock Park. And I mean, also the police officers, they only have my part of the levee right there to overlook Bedrock Park from the levee and shine spotlights there, whereas they could go all the way along the levee with a spotlight if the road was continued through. And I know people would use this road and it would make it safer. There'd be more eyes up there on the levee because when I drive home from work, I go Feather River Boulevard right around and to my house. And as a renter, I can't say as an owner, but my landlord does not really tend to my home, so I don't think she really has an input. But if you needed to expand the road, because right where my house is, you have to stop on either side, let someone go by, and then the next person goes by, or if someone's not familiar with the road, they just...
Time.
Can you let him just finish up, because we did take some of his time there.
Thank you. So my thing that I wanted to say was if you needed to, which you would, to get 2 lanes in there, expand the road out to my fence line, I would do it, because it takes a lot to maintain that part of that slant on the levee right there where my fence is. It takes a lot to maintain that anyways, and it's a fire hazard, you know, when the summer comes around. So if that was all just paved, you know, then we wouldn't have to worry about that. I just took a fence out behind my house because Purple Line built around me without taking the alley out. So I had an alley to nowhere, just a courtyard of my own. And so in the process, Brian and Stephanie are helping me take that down. And then anyways, the other thing was the brick wall. To expand that road there, you would have to expand a little bit into the old brick wall that used to be a part of our baseball stadium for the Oroville Olives and the Oroville Red Sox that used to play there. There's the old dugouts, and the bricks are still there. And as a historian, you know, I think we could get rid of some of that wall. You know, the gal who caught the what do you call it? The apartments in Thermalito on fire. She was camping out there before a branch had even given her some shelter to hide there in the middle of the day. And I cut that apart and stacked it up for the Feather River Parks to take care of. So if you leave a little bit of those bricks there, you know, just to show that the historic value, that it was still there, you know. But yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Ballard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other public comment? Mr. Smith?
I kind of like being on this side. It's kind of fun. Trying to think of things to say. No, but
Did you fill out a card?
you waved the card.
Okay.
Yeah, it's magic. What I really think we should work towards in thinking in tourism and accessibility to the river, especially this time of year, you're watching the steelhead fishermen down there, and they precariously find their way down to the river. And so if we made the river more accessible, we had access points Centennial Plaza area, up behind the convention center. There's just, I think, some appropriate locations that can be identified to create access points, quality trails, because right now, essentially, we have people making their own trails, and so we have the erosion, we have all that going on. It's unmitigated, and so if we actually put in managed trails, access, I think that would enhance the tourism dynamic. It would make it easier access for the steelhead fishermen to come up here. I mean, that's a big deal, and they love to come to Oroville from Sacramento and the Bay Area. And so if we develop that, and then also for those that are sturdy, that want to put in their kayaks, so up to the nature center, it'd be wonderful to see a little dock down there. People could put in and access the water and then float on and then maybe pull out at bedrock. So just some ideas like that. So making that, so we have this beautiful river, we all know, we all talk about it, but it's not real accessible. So how we could develop that for fishermen, boating, swimming, all those various activities. So just some food for thought. Perhaps some 68 money could go towards that. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, think about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Moment to listen to me. I have maybe a possible suggestion, at least maybe an interim gap before the whole process of maybe shutting part of that levee down to traffic. I was speaking with Ron Belzer, and he was basically telling me that the cars that live in their cars behind our house, there's a court case out of LA that prevents officers from harassing people that live in their cars. And that road being a public road that goes nowhere is kind of obsolete. And he and I, between the two of us, we it wasn't me, but things I was saying kind of led him to think that if the levee stretch was taken over by the Parks Department, where it could be a gateway from Bedrock to Rotary to Centennial, they could put curfews on it. And then the police could actually get the cars to leave in the daytime, at nighttime. Obviously, I still don't want them behind our house in the daytime, but it may be something that could eliminate the jurisdictional confusion of who maintenances it, who takes care of it. Wade, thank you for your crew for spending immense amount of hours and time cleaning up the back of the tennis courts. We still would love the rest of the levee to be done as well. And we clean it ourselves, and there's areas that are very difficult to access, and we can't clean it. And summer's coming, and the weather's getting better, and it's all going to turn back into what it was if we're not very careful. And so we're trying to get our numbers up to make them feel uncomfortable to a point, but we're not vigilantes, so we have to tread carefully because you still don't know who you're dealing with up there. It's still not safe for me to walk up there. And just today, I saw the lady who typically feeds the cats up there. And if they can't drive the cars in there, they'd actually have to walk in there with the cat food, more exposed, and probably not likely to continue to do those types of things. And I'm all for bike passages, walking passages. We have motorcycles that drive from Daniel's side on 5th Street, and they're doing 50, 60 miles an hour behind the tennis courts and going around the barricade and on down to Centennial Park. So there are people who already use it as a through vehicle road, and it's just not safe. And just, I believe that if it could become a park, there would be a little bit more enforcement value, at least in the interim, because obviously we would much rather not cars being back there at all. But it could at least eliminate that nighttime exposure, because there's no trash cans. It takes a lot of city resources and or our resources from us trying to create a nice neighborhood and spending time on things we want to spend the time on. So thank you again for taking a moment to listen to me.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a favor of you, Brian. Can you at some point text me about that so I don't forget? I'm not going to mention all my questions here that I have for Wade and staff tonight on that particular subject because we're already stressed for time, but I don't want to forget about it for the next meeting.
I will do so.
You want to start our timer? Or whatever. You want to talk, whatever you want to do? I think you could probably reduce the
Because
5
you all
minutes.
have been working hard while they're talking, I am reducing the timer to 5 minutes instead of 10. So you're going to have 5 minutes to write out all your thoughts on as far as goals and ideas for the parks. And once those are all written out, at the end of the timer, we'll start the next part. So the timer is going now.
So quiet in here. Do you need to borrow some of mine? Huh? Oh, no, I asked Kay if she needed to borrow some of my notepads or my sticky notes.
I got it. I got all those.
Oh.
It's okay. I got them.
Got about 45 seconds. So if you feel like you're done, you can go ahead and start sticking them up there on the whiteboard behind you. You got about 15 seconds if you're still writing. So for now, just stick them wherever you would like up there. Not yet. Yeah, just get them up there. Yep. Either way, yep.
I almost forgot. So, before she moves on to her next step, I have something that you've been waiting for a long time.
Oh, I think I know what it is.
You would have had it earlier when you walked in, but I've been hiding it from you, and I almost forgot that I hid it.
Yay! I'm official.
So I need 2 volunteers.
I'm easily entertained and official.
So 2 of you, I need 2 volunteers. All right, so Bobby, one other, Bobby and Mickey.
You guys go ahead.
All right. So what the 2 of you are going to do is you have 5 minutes to go up and organize those into groups. Yep, things that you think go together, start grouping them together. And you can move them back and forth between your 2 whiteboards as you start grouping them together. You have 3 minutes left. Make sure if you're looking at both sides as you're starting to combine things.
Commissioner Castro, we will look at it and make sure that it's posted. Well, that's cruddy.
A minute, 30 seconds. Forty-five seconds.
Oh, perfect.
And that is the time. So what I need now is 2 different volunteers. So of the 3 of you. All right. So we have Michael and Bobby. So you're going to go up, kind of see if you can figure out what those categories look like, if anything needs to be moved, and you're going to have 2 minutes to kind of review what's up there and see if anything needs to be moved or rearranged a little. You have 1 minute left. All right. So now we've got a little bit of time to spare there. What is going to happen now is we're going to have 5 minutes, and one of you is going to be making circles for me. So who wants to be?
I should have volunteered earlier.
So what you're going to do, Kay, is you're going to make circles around what seems to be the group, and then we're going to identify it. Yes. And what does it look like the identifier is for that?
Fun, dog walking park, Rotary Park, family friendly.
All right, so write fun across it. Yeah.
Decision about museums.
Diligence.
Sorry?
Diligence.
Okay.
Okay. I heard you say park development.
I would put under. Can I do that?
You're running out of time.
Oh, shoot. Safety, okay, safety, that one's easy.
2.5 minutes.
Oh, you'll be better than that.
No, because you have that's like a whole.
But live entertainment, change the levy so it's not a thoroughfare. Regular rest stops, brick wall.
You have a whole bunch of categorized things there, though. Well, they're not the. Okay.
But it's right here. Help me, come help me.
You guys are able to talk to her while she's doing this.
So you have other things on there like above river activities. You have
maybe live
river
entertainment
access.
could go with-
You have
Come up here.
Marketing activities.
Activities, rest stop. Parks who are organized activities, like social media, making the train, park updates, blah, 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 advertising, that's all going to be. Administration, communication. What do you guys think?
All right, with 10 seconds to spare. So,
it's like, oh, I had more time.
More time.
for the next exactly 10 minutes, with your mics on, You can share why you feel a certain area is more important than the other, or if there's things that you're really feeling about a certain section. So for 10 minutes, it's open dialogue amongst the 5 of you. And then we'll be moving on to actually prioritizing them in order of 1 through.
Do we have to request to speak, or can we just speak freely?
I think that you can speak freely as long as you're not speaking over someone.
Okay.
All right, 10 minutes.
You don't have to push the button. Just keep your mics on.
Okay, I pushed the button. I recently did something with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we always start out with shelter, food, water, and it's reversing the hierarchy of needs that actually leads to more of a sustainable and sense of purpose. So sometimes if you have what I believe Stephanie and Brian's philosophy really is, if we clean it up, it'll make it a place that people want to go and who want to use it to clean it up. And it's a bit of that reverse of psychology. So I want to see us do both at the same time, do what we need to for our safety and our fences and our cameras, but also make it a place where, unfortunately, they're really uncomfortable to be. Mm-hmm. And we are comfortable in using our resources.
Right. I would like to see the city go forward and people think this is a destination to come. Be able to put in place activities for those people that aren't from our town. Will say, well, we're going to go to Oroville because we're going to do X, Y, or Z. You know, personally, you look at the trail bikes all over the state of California. You know, that's a multi-billion-dollar business, and we've got the Feather River there, and we're not getting a penny, and people are riding their bikes down there anyway.
Well, one of the things that felt important to me was, I know that we have discussed it now and it keeps coming around at all of these meetings, but I think we really have got to settle this, whether or not the museums are going to fall under our purview. If it is up to us to decide to present that to council, I'd like to propose that we make that decision tonight. And also, can we figure out a way to be more clear on the gray areas, like where Feather River Parks begins and we begin? Because it seems like also at a lot of our meetings, especially when the public is addressing us, we have to go back and say, we appreciate your comments, but that is Feather River Park and Rec. And then the other thing that I was so inspired by the other night that I think would be great for marketing and for Oroville citizens is activities that are regularly scheduled. So you don't have to check Facebook every 15 minutes to see what's going on. And if you're not just wired that way, that you just know First Friday is First Friday. Daniel's wonderful downtown walking tour is First Saturday. Matinee at the State Theater, however many Sundays they decide that that's going to work out, and have some regularly scheduled activities that people can really count on. And I think people will come out for that. And then that, I think, will catch on, and people from other areas will possibly plan trips around things that are interesting to them. Maybe when the levee gets developed or certain trails are developed, that could be a regularly scheduled thing that people could look forward to and plan a day trip or plan a weekend in Oroville because they know certain things are happening. That's my...
Can I just add one quick thing onto that? I just got that docent letter, and our museums are open 5 different days at 5 different hours, 6 different days. So to that point, I don't know, maybe our museum, we don't want them all open on the same day. I don't know, but somebody should be addressing why aren't they open on the same day, and we advertise that, and people go to 3 and then they go to lunch and then they go to 2.
We can address that. We can address that if you like. I mean,
just curious.
All of our museums are ran by volunteer docents, so it's based on the time they are available and they are willing to work at those museum locations. Mm-hmm. We let them specifically pick days and times that they're willing to work. So it's not on city staff at all. It's on Wade's crew to open and close for them. But the days and times they're open and they're available is directly affected or directly picked by our docents.
They can change their hours if they so
anytime they want. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Typically Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, though, and
Wednesday and
Wednesday.
Tuesday. And
And depending on tours,
the more the
as well.
better. We agree,
And that might
and
also-
we encourage them to be open all the time if they would like. It's just
Five and a half minute mark.
it's based
Right.
on
But that
it's based
also
on
goes-
them.
And that goes to Commissioner Krantz as well about having set hours for things. So here we go. Do we go to talk to the docents? Can I call Frida Flint and say, hey, Frida, can we have set times? Or who says, hey, Frida?
We take
Hey,
that
Frida.
recommendation from Park Commission and then we talk to the docents. But again, that program is in the process of being
Okay,
transformed.
Okay. I'll be quiet.
Just so the commissioners know, this is, leave your mic on. This is, a time for us to discuss amongst ourselves. This is not an orderly conversation. We don't have to request to speak. We don't have to direct our comment. This is just a time for us to talk about this openly.
Right, the levee is the most underutilized resource we have in the river. That is a wonderful place, and now I know a lot of people, they go down, including myself, we like to go on walks and stuff, and some of it is not as accessible as it could be. You know, so to be able to open our city up by using our levee all the way down to the diversion pool, you know, past the nature city, all the way down to Riverbend Park. That all should be able, you should be able to walk up and down there and ride a bicycle. You know, and I'm not talking about the person that's, you know, the mountain biker going to scream down there, but a mom should be able to go down there with her children and ride a bicycle down there. You know, it should be something that's accessible to all ages. And, you know, that's a resource that's just, it's amazing down there. I just don't know why it hasn't been developed.
I think the commission has identified 6 areas, and I think that we can move. You know, I'm happy to support creating priorities in all 6 of those areas. I especially like the idea of putting the time and the heart into enhancing our parks and making them really, they are something special. Telling people that there's something special. I don't think that, you know, you can see one park, 2 parks from the highway when you're driving by, but I think that more advertisement, more, you know, having events, making it known that, you know, events happen regularly at these, whether it's a athletic event, a run or a hike, or, you know, just place to have something personal is all important and will all help meet the security goals.
So Jackie, how much time do we have left?
You have about 2.5 minutes.
Can you do me a favor and say the same thing you did at the beginning of that on what you would like to see this conversation be about?
Well, right now it's just kind of talking about what's important to you, and then at the end of this timer, we're going to move on to actually numbering which one of these will be your first priority, second priority, etc. Yeah, which we can start now if you're ready.
Are the commissioners ready to move on?
Okay.
So our last step that we're going to do for tonight, this is not the end of the process by any means. Our last step for tonight is we have identified 6 categories. We have fun, we have diligence, admin, communication, we have user-friendly development, we have safety, levy, and promotion. And so when looking at those, what we need to decide, or what you need to decide as a commission, is which one do the 5 of you back as your top priority for your commission?
Safety.
What is your first
I've seen this done
and top priority?
you can all come up and write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and see how many 1s there are, 2s and 6s, or
For me, safety is number 1.
just
Is
like our
number
first
1
straw.
is number 1 different for anyone else?
No, I think safety, I think we have to get a handle on safety and security before anything else can be expected.
So I'm hearing safety is your number 1 priority. Okay. So now comes the fun part. What is your second top priority?
Development and fun. I think that could almost be one category.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think development and fun could be one.
So we want to combine fun with user-friendly development and make it our second priority? Okay.
Now we're down to 5 categories.
So you have left, you have diligence, admin, and communication, levy, and promotion. What would be your third priority?
Promotion.
Priority-wise, for me, is the communication, administration, making sure everything's as it should be. And that would actually, for me, would have been number 2. But number 2 is good the way it is. So for me, that would be number 3.
I would go back to, once we have safety taken care of and make it fun, let's go back to another safety development issue. So I'd make levy 3.
Yeah, I think I would make levy 3 because it's, there's a lot, well, that's in development and stuff too, so that's.
Kind of is, isn't it?
Yeah, that should be over there in the development instead of being its own thing.
So you,
I'd like to combine levy and development because that's what you have to do to it.
So we have
If you're gonna
riverfront
go.
park, nature walk, art features, dog walking.
so is it the wish of the
levy.
group to add levy to development, user-friendly
I would be
development?
okay with
fun?
that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyone opposed to that? No. Okay, so we're we're adding fun, user-friendly development, and levy as one group, and then you need to figure out is that your third priority, or, because you have at that point you have that one and promotion left.
Also within this levy, this number 2, you could prioritize number 2 by safety development as subcategories, like ABC. We don't have to do that tonight, but it is safety and then development and then promote it for the levy as well.
So
Promotion or communication? This is an internal communication issue.
I
agree.
And that's an external marketing issue, I think.
I think so too.
Right.
Again,
I think the external marketing, you have to get the word out, right? And we can always fight out.
we don't have anything working as it should and things happening if we don't have the administration, the communications, the diligence, the backbone functioning as it should.
I think this comes first because you can promote it all you want, but if you can't direct them to a website or have a phone number, thinking.
So that, for me, that would have been number 2. But definitely, for me, would be number 3 if we don't have room for number 2.
Well, see, the promotion is all under the due diligence, right? Because, that's part of the internal setting of everything up. If you don't have the website, that's an integral part of building your product, right? And if you think of the parks as a product, the promotion is an internal part of management function of building the product, which is the parks. So instead of that being separate, that should be under.
I personally don't like combining those two because for me, those are 2 separate topics. Again, like I said, you have your administration communication, you have your backbone of the operation, which needs to be, again, my thought process, needs to be complete and going. And then you need to have everything ready and then promote the heck out of it so that people come.
Right, but to me, this promotion should be underneath that. It should be a subcategory, a subclad of your internal processes. Because you're right, they have to come first, but the promotion would be a subset of that.
So I see where you're coming from is, yes, the administration would be the ones to do the promoting and get it on the website and stuff, but that's not necessarily what that means up there for that category. So the promotion itself is talking about how are we going to promote our individual parks, how are we going to promote our parks as a whole, whereas the diligence admin and communications. Can you read us a couple of those,
When
Kay?
is the curator on board? What's a faster docent approval process? One central phone number for parks and trees with feedback. When is the decision going to be made on museums as part of this committee? Or promotion is making one train and attraction playable. Social media, post highlights of events, park updates, organized
upgrades.
museum activities. Update website really should be over here, really. Don't you think? It's not really promotion, it's administration. Update website, city website.
So I just want to remind the commission too that the city has an RFP currently released for remarketing and branding the city. So this all comes with that. So that is being addressed. It's, excuse me, also being addressed with Explore Butte County and the marketing that we're doing that's Oroville centric.
Then I'd go here. If you think there's already a group that might be redoing all the marketing and stuff, then I think we should make sure our communications is set so that when we're ready for that.
And I can answer some of the questions that were up there as well regarding the curator in background check. She's still in background check. She had to put an order in for documents. It's a part of the process. So it's just taking longer than we would like. As far as the docent recruitment or the docent background check process, that's also another fingerprinting process that has to happen. So they come in, they fill out an application, they do a live scan fingerprinting form, they take it to the Butte County Sheriff's Department, and then we await the results of that background check to come to our Human Resources Department. So it depends on how long that applicant takes to go to the sheriff to get their fingerprinting done. And then it just depends on how much of a backlog the sheriff's department has before they get to that specific applicant.
I'll
So
tell you, some of the docents have gotten their results back fairly quick, whereas folks like myself who have done fingerprints for some other community things have been waiting months. So
exactly.
It can be a while.
It's a waiting game for us.
Okay, so what I have, and let me know if you all agree, is I have safety as your top priority, user-friendly development and the levy as number 2. I have diligence, admin, and communication as number 3, and promotion as number 4.
Fun was number 2 as well.
User-friendly development includes fun,
Yes.
boulders.
So from here, what we'll do is staff will take pictures of what you actually have up there. We will bring back, so I'll have a sheet put together that will have safety, user-friendly development, levy fund, and each of the categories with everything that you guys have written up there under there. And then typically what happens from here is we'll start with priority 1 and looking at the items you have listed and seeing what staff and the commission can do, whether it's stuff that staff can work on or stuff that needs to go to the council for a recommendation, and we'll start kind of working through the items that are on your list. And so that's kind of the next steps and the process from here. But so at your next meeting, you'll have everything that's up there typed out on a piece of paper for you to be able to look at and start prioritizing from your priorities.
Thank you.
Great.
All right.
So
That was fun.
can I make a, I don't know if I can do this here because this is a special meeting, but can I make a request from staff to take to the next council meeting?
Yes.
So I believe it's the consensus of this commission for either us or staff to take to council to request museums as a whole be put under our purview.
Okay. We will do that.
And however you word that or do that, to make sure that council knows the history of how the role that the Parks Commission has played in the museums, the reasoning why we would like that to be under our purview so that it can be taken care of, nurtured, cared for. Not that it's not, but just because we have so many other aspects in that, we would love to have that under our purview so we can assist in that direction.
So we have missed the deadline for the agenda for staff for March 15th. It will go to the April 5th meeting.
Thank you. Is there anything else from staff? Anything else from commissioners? With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 7:25. Next meeting is going to be regular meeting on April 12th, 2022 at 5:15.